What up, and welcome into the roundtable. I'm your host, Brad Wakai, alongside my co-host, Tyson Gentry. And ladies and gentlemen, today we have a special podcast because we have our first two guests joining us today. And we have TJ and Kyle Banaszewski. We are talking college football. We have a massive college football podcast. But before we get into it, got to do the pleasantries. Tyson, my co-host, how are you doing today, brother?
Well, last week you called me esteemed, but you didn't give our guests like anything coming in.
Wow. We'll get there. I wanted to
TJ
make
doesn't
sure
even
you
have
were
a
good.
last name. I mean, what are we doing?
You're right. We have TJ Griffin, Giants fan. Good luck there. And we have Kyle Banaszewski,
Yeah, we're not talking about
Patriots
that game today.
connoisseur. Patriots
Indeed.
connoisseur, feeling good about himself
Very
after
good.
the Patriots got off to a hot start. But we got an NFL podcast. If you want to listen to that, listen to our gambling picks. That's every Sunday. But boys, we're talking amateur ball today. We are talking college football, and probably the craziest college football like slate or carousel coaching wise that I can remember. I mean, honestly, it's been insane. Lincoln Riley going to USC, leaving Oklahoma. That's a big job that opened up. Brian Kelly leaving Notre Dame, going to LSU. That's a big job that opened up. So we'll dive right into that and kind of get our takes and opinions and go broad picture and big picture perspective from there. But Tyson, go ahead and give me your thoughts. Like when all this was starting to happen, all the movement was going down. What were you thinking when you're sitting on your couch?
Oh, I loved it. I mean, this is like every year it seems like we get really excited when there's one big job open, and then it's like they just fill it with the interim offensive line coach, and we don't really, freak out. It's like Tom Herman to Texas. That was a huge deal, but he's coming from Houston, like before they were established. These are guys leaving established programs. Lincoln Riley, he's rumored for every NFL head coaching job that comes open, let alone college football. Brian Kelly's like the third winningest head coach in college football right now, percentage-wise, I think. And he leaves Notre Dame, which might be like the easiest job in the country. You just got to find, I mean, they got to have 3.75s or 4.0s or whatever, but like the expectations are not the same, right, as a lot of the other big time schools. And, we were all kind of making fun of Michigan State with the Noah Tucker contract or Penn State with the James Franklin contract. But, I mean, we saw it with the introduction of the NIL. This is kind of college football now to America is what we've all kind of thought for a long time. It's just a business. And these guys are just making business decisions, business moves, which is really cool. But I'm not waking up at 7 a.m. to go to a 4-minute meeting for you to tell me that you just wanted more money.
Yeah, I mean I think that's well said. I mean, when you look at it, we've known as college football fans that this is a big business. Whether or not the players are getting the players are getting paid or not directly from schools or directly from outside influences like car dealerships or anything like that. I mean, they're getting paid with their scholarship, they're getting paid with a stipend, but like big time money, $1 million deals, that's finally come to light here. And through that, more money is fluctuated through the sport. So now it's just on the forefront when you see like what these athletic departments are coming out and saying they paid to get Lincoln Riley to USC. I mean, it's ridiculous. TJ, I guess first with the James Franklin news, us being Penn Staters and Kyle as well, that kind of really kicked a bunch of things off with the big contract. And he was obviously rumored to be heading to USC. And so now USC gets Lincoln Riley. I mean, just what are your thoughts directly with these massive contracts, with the movements and coaches staying and just everything in general?
It's actually really exciting stuff. Tyson hit the nail on the head where this year, what makes this year so special is you've seen coaches leaving very established programs, established positions that they've been there for quite some time now. Like, Lincoln Riley leaving, granted, he left for the second largest media market in the country in, Sunnyside, LA, for a very historic program. And if he can be that guy to restore it to its former glory, like that will just be great for his resume when you start talking down the line. But Brian Kelly, winningest coach in Notre Dame history, leaving there, taking it, saying, you know what, no more of this independent shit, TV deals, just going on to take that job down and see what he can do in the SEC. Now he's part of it's big time down there, big time conference, have a lot of very tough division rivals. So we'll see what he can do there. I think, that Notre Dame, I think, was a perfect place for them. He was treated like a god on that campus. So it's going to be tough starting from new, but he's also starting with a program that has had won a national championship in the last couple of years. So it's really exciting stuff. James Franklin, like you said, I thought he was going to go to USC, especially after hiring that new agent. Now we see why 10-year extension. And yeah, no, I think this was one of the most interesting, and it's not even off-season deals, like mid-season or towards the end of the season, all this stuff going on. So
And I know, Kyle, you're not a big fan of James Franklin, been a vocal critic of his. I think a lot more people are coming to your side on the James Franklin thing as a Penn State fan. It's just hasn't quite lived up to our expectations. You know, going to a Rose Bowl, going to a Fiesta Bowl, winning a Big Ten championship, and it's really teetered down since. And I think a lot of people were looking at it when he signed the contract, like, what's he really done to deserve a massive extension like this recently? I think that's a thought. Maybe if you do it after the high points of the Rose Bowl and the Fiesta Bowl, I think more people would have been on board with that or supportive with it. But when you do it after a real dip in what the program's been under James Franklin, I think a lot of people question that. You being a critic of it, I mean, just go ahead and lay out your thoughts. I want to give you the platform.
Real quick, Kyle, on this podcast, we victory lap all the time. So rev the engine, get ready, let's go.
All right.
This is time for celebration.
Yeah, it definitely is. So yeah, let me kick this off. I just first have to say, I'm honestly kind of surprised, even knowing Sandy Barber and all her antics. Still surprised at how long this contract really is, 10 years. And looking into the details of it, it's pretty much all guaranteed. So even if we wanted to get rid of him after 4, 5, 6 years, we still need to pay him out his salary for the remainder of the term, which is absolutely ridiculous to me. I just don't understand why we did that or put ourselves in that position to kind of be backed in a corner and to give him such a coaching-friendly contract, especially like Brad, you alluded to. He hasn't really done much the past 2 seasons. I mean, like what? He's 1 or 2 games above 500. Like, I feel like that's absolutely just ridiculous, especially with these, quote unquote, great recruiting classes that he's been bringing in. It's just been honestly disappointing. And I don't care how big of a diehard Penn State fan you are. I think you're pretty, hot-headed if you can't admit that. So again, I want to see Penn State, thrive. I really do. No matter how many people think that's not true, but it's just hard to really get fully on board when there's someone I think leading the program who really shouldn't be there. And I thought after these past 2 years, it seems like more people are coming on my side, but still, like, again, Sandy Barber, I just don't understand what's going on with that. But it's starting to set a precedent across the country, as we've seen, just over the last week with these insane contracts that are being handed out. And I'm curious to see just how this gets like a snowball rolling going into the future, because there's more money being tossed around like nothing now. And we've never seen anything really like this before in the past. I mean, even Saban, I know he's in some renegotiations right now, but I mean, he's not even getting money like this prior, and he's been winning, championship every other year. So it's just a crazy time.
Well, you mentioned it. I want to pose the question to the group, I guess, is like, was those 2 moves, the Michigan State and the Penn State, kind of locking down unproven, mediocre, maybe above average coaches who in the national media, right, are sweethearts? Did that set the precedent for these other schools to be like, all right, here's 10 years. And in Lincoln Riley's case, they're buying his house, 2 houses, they're buying him $500,000 above asking price. They're giving him $1 million bonus. These wild details. Was that set because it's like, okay, we could have Mel Tucker for 95, or we got to pay out the ass to get somebody that we know is proven and has done this?
I guess I'll touch on this real quick and then I'll let you guys jump in. But I really think we're living in an age where everyone needs like instant gratification and everyone wants to win now. And I think, some of these ADs have that perspective or idea in their head that they need to shell out this money to get someone there that they think can get them to the promised land. And whether or not, they're in the right on that decision is to be seen. But I think that's kind of where we're headed, especially down in the SEC. Like, we just saw Dan Mullen get canned. I think Dan Mullen's a pretty damn good coach. And I was telling Brad this the other day. I saw a tweet recently, and it was showing Dan Mullen's coaching statistics to James Franklin's over the past 3 years.
Harder conference too.
Yeah, I'd say generally, but still, I think just the total outcome is just pretty startling when you look at it. Dan Mullen has a better record over the last 3 years, more top 15 finishes, and more bowl wins. He gets fired. James Franklin gets a 10-year extension. I mean, again, you could say the SEC is a different beast, and I would agree to that to a certain point, but just that stark contrast of getting fired to a 10-year extension to lead your program, like that to me is just kind of ridiculous. But
Well, I think kind of like where both you guys are looking at this is it's two completely different angles, right? And I think because when we talk about the NFL, it's under one umbrella, right? You have your commissioner and you have your owner and you have this similar structure. In college football, you have boosters and you have powerful boosters who pay a ton of money for powerful influence. And yeah, we have athletic directors who oversee the athletic department, but you have people funneling in millions, multi-million dollars into a specific program. So when down in Florida, if the guy doesn't like Dan Mullen, who's funneling $20 million a year, his voice is going to be a lot louder in that room. And when he has expectations that exceed what he feels haven't been reached under Dan Mullen, then he's going to want to make a change. And down in the South, just things go a lot quicker and they have more hunger to reach that. I think then in the Big Ten, more of an academic setup. They put emphasis on other sports in the Big Ten. I think it's not as football crazy as the South is. So I think when you juxtapose when James Franklin's getting this extension for success in the past 3 years that's less than Dan Mullen's, I think you got to look at where they're at. Penn State being a football program 6 years ago was in the dumps, or 8 years ago, basically coming off a death penalty. So people are happy that they went to a Rose Bowl. People are happy that they won a Fiesta Bowl. And you can say, okay, what have you done for me lately? And I think that's where a lot of Penn Staters are coming from. But I think it's apples and oranges when you look at, well, Florida, they're doing this with their head coach, and Penn State's doing this. And I think to Tyson's point, that's like a broader picture of college football in general, where the contract given to Mel Tucker and James Franklin, that might have been a snowball for the Lincoln Riley and Brian Kelly getting massive deals. But USC, without a big name head coach, has been dog shit. I mean, that program has fallen from heaven, just completely into the ground. I mean, they're worse than Oregon State right now. Oregon State, the Beavers, they're worse. USC, we're talking about. And we just said historic program. They fucking suck. Like, that program is terrible. They got outclassed by BYU. Like, it was a joke. And so, yeah, they're going to pay out of their ass to go get Lincoln Riley, of course, because they need to get that program back. And I think, Tyson, your question with Mel Tucker is a different one with Michigan State because, okay, we're going to pay him a ton of money because what happens if he leaves and he pulls a Brian Kelly and he goes to LSU? Well, we're kind of fucked because we're the little brother to Michigan in our own state, let alone the Big Ten. So I think it's just a different conversation across the board when you look at where these conferences and where these programs are at in college football, especially.
Hey, Brad.
One thing.
Sorry, TJ.
Yeah, no, I just wanted one thing I want to touch on specifically about Penn State is look at the culture of the program historically. They're not used to coaches coming in and out outside of Bill O'Brien. Like, you had Joe Pa for however long he was there for. And so that's just not part of their culture to keep running through coaches. Whereas at programs like Florida and some of these SEC teams, they're used to, two and done. If you're out of there sometimes as early as 2 years if you can't have any success. Like, look at LSU. Ed Ogeron just won a championship and he wasn't there for that long and he's out of there now. Like, that's just a different culture at not only the conference level but also at the institution.
Yeah, Brad, I was just going to say, when you were comparing the SEC and the Big Ten and Penn State specifically, and again, I would agree on a general note that the SEC, typically follows kind of what you said, more football crazy and all that jazz. But just as a Penn Stater and me going there and knowing how Penn State tries to market their team and knowing that Penn State has one of the biggest, if not the biggest, alumni networks, I think it's pretty crazy to think that the millions of donors and boosters that we have don't rival an SEC team like Florida.
Notre Dame for that matter. I mean, Brian Kelly's leaving Notre Dame. Who's got deeper pockets than the guys leaving, in South Bend, Indiana?
No, yeah. I mean, I agree. So, I mean, yeah, maybe on a conference level, in my opinion, it's comparing, apples and oranges. But I mean, just with those two teams and Penn State specifically, I think it might be a little closer than initially led on when it comes to boosters having an influence, which is, again, why I'm kind of surprised, again, knowing how big Penn State's alumni network is and the insane amount of money that people shell out to go to games. I mean, just with the people we hang out, Brad, I mean, it's literally ridiculous what they pay to come see them. So I don't know. Again, it's just surprising, especially, we just give them this extension and we look around, the country and we see all these huge name coaches going places. Like, who's to say, like, we couldn't have shelled out $1 million or $2 extra to someone, like Brian Kelly or Lincoln Riley and got him to come? Like, how insane would that have been? But, it is what it is, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I think that's a fair point on your aspect when you're analyzing it. I think you'd have to probably, straw poll the alumni base and truly see they're content with James Franklin. Are you ready to make a move? Lincoln Riley would also have to want to come to Penn State. Same with Brian Kelly. So there's a lot of things going on. I guess but I mean, that's fair. Your analysis is fair as well. I mean, Tyson, you posed the question. What are your thoughts on everything?
I mean, I kind of think so. I also think that some of these schools were left scrambling because I think, like, as far as LSU goes, I think Jimbo Fisher was plan A, and that quickly became, that's not going to happen. And they moved on, and we heard Lincoln Riley was only talking to USC for like 8 hours. That's just been going on since like March. So they were like, hey, you want to come here? He's like, no, I got a deal in place over here. I'm good. So then they're kind of scrambling quickly. And then they threw a bunch of money at Brian Kelly, which, as an LSU fan, I'm cool with. But as far as all those things go, it's kind of important to keep in mind we're talking about 2 of the 5-10 best jobs in college football. Whereas if you're Penn State, in my opinion, you're probably the 3rd best job in the Big Ten at the moment. I would rather coach Ohio State. I'd probably rather coach Michigan. And if you're talking about USC, I mean, you have an entire coast that as soon as Lincoln Riley knocks on the door, like if it's Clay Helton, it's one thing. But Lincoln Riley goes, okay, I got a couple number 1 draft picks under my belt. I got Heisman Trophy winners. Would you rather go to me or you want to go to the UCLA? Like, you want to come here playing national TV every day. We got our swagger back. All of a sudden, we're unrivaled. And the beautiful part about the Lincoln Riley deal is, in my opinion, they're going to go directly where Oklahoma was. In a couple of years, they're going to be 4th, and they're going to get the fucking shit kicked out of them by Georgia or Bama or Ohio State or whoever that 1 seed is. But it doesn't matter because now he gets conference championships. They can't can him for a decade. And so after that, it's going to be, you have that conversation again 10 years down the line. He's going to be able to point to all these Heisman winners, all these number 1 classes. All it takes is 1, fellas. You just got to win 1, and you're good over there. At a place like Florida, you got to win the SEC championship. You got to be a threat for it. You got to be better than the big dogs. And, it's like winning the AFC East is cool, but you're never the best coach in the AFC East. Sean McDermott knows he's not better than Bill Belichick. It's the same thing in the SEC. Walking in there. And that's part of the reason I admire Brian Kelly kind of for taking on that challenge. But I totally understand why a guy like Lincoln Riley was like, I'm good. I'm cool. So, we'll see.
Yeah. And Billy Napier leaving Louisiana and going to Florida. I think that's actually a really good fit. I love Billy Napier. I think he's an excellent head coach. So I think that's a good fit. But all right, guys, let's dive into Lincoln Riley and USC. We focused on other jobs, kind of like the broader picture. Let's just talk Lincoln Riley and USC right now and where we think he can actually bring this program. It's obvious that USC has been struggling. We know that the Clay Helton, the Steve Sarkisian, the whole mess that's been going on behind the scenes in the athletic department at USC. Here's a stabilizing force, young 38-year-old hotshot, Heisman Trophy winners. Here he comes. Can he lead them back to prominence? Before we get into this, though, Kyle, I'm going to need you to switch hats because I know we got a young Lincoln Riley. If you're watching on YouTube,
you should have never brought that out.
So he's got his SC hat ready.
It's ready to be returned. The boy's got the tags on it.
It's just fresh off the shelf. We're ready to go.
I love it.
So, all right, I'll go to you, Mr. Lincoln Riley Jr. Then, I mean, where do you think he can take him?
Well, that's a good question, Brad. I mean, obviously, it's kind of been said 100 times over the past few years, but the Pac-12 has been kind of down recently. They're not getting as much attention as they used to, especially back in the Pete Carroll, Reggie Bush days, or even when Chip Kelly and Marcus Mariota were out there at Oregon, doing their thing for a little bit. But again, like it was mentioned, as soon as Lincoln Riley knocks on the door, that's huge. That's national, media. Those are recruits, pouring out there. I heard an interesting point the other day, and I think it's pretty relevant and prominent to bring up, is that there's so much talent on the West Coast. I mean, if you just look at like Ohio State, a Rust Belt, middle of the country, team. C.J. Stroud, West Coast kid. Chris Olave, West Coast kid. Thibodeau, potential #1 pick in the draft, Oregon, West Coast kid. Lincoln Riley goes out there. There's a high chance that those kids aren't leaving, and then they're coming to USC to play, on one of the biggest stages in the country. And just with that power and that influence alone, I can easily see them, playing for a Pac-12 championship in I'd say 2 years, 2 to 3 years, easily. I really think, especially out there in the Pac-12, where I'd say it's definitely softer than the SEC, especially on defense. And we all know Lincoln Riley is an offensive guy. I think he can really thrive out there. I'd love to see them get, another A1 brand quarterback out there like they've had over the years with Leinart, Barkley, and all them. Sanchez. But it's gonna be interesting to see what he can do. I'm also very curious to see the coaching staff that he surrounds him with. I think that's a very underrated part of any coach's tenure. Whenever they go somewhere new, you're only as good as the weakest link in the chain. And I do think if he surrounds himself with the right people, and he can delegate the work accordingly, and he can especially really focus on recruiting the first couple of years and bring in some strong draft classes, I think they can definitely become a national powerhouse, at least recognized and consistently in the top 15 or 20 every year, because the last 2-3 years have been pretty miserable out there for those kids. So I'd like to see them perform. I think college football is definitely better when USC is a national powerhouse for sure.
Well, to your point, I mean, Malachi Nelson was originally committed to Oklahoma when Lincoln Riley was there. He's the #2 overall player in the class of 2023, 5-star quarterback, just committed to USC with Lincoln Riley, obviously going to USC. Jackson Dart was a 5-star kid who's currently there. Caleb Williams, will he transfer and follow Lincoln Riley to USC? So it's a whole thing. He's going to be flush with talent. Tyson, give me a rip an opinion for me here on what you think Lincoln Riley is going to do for that program.
Well, the whole time that I've been thinking about this, I just come back to one thing, and that's we're of the age where like USC was really cool when we were younger. USC was the shit. They had Reggie Bush, Lindell White, Matt Leinart. It was like you turned on your TV on Saturday, they were always playing in prime time. And now, I'm 25. I'm thinking kids that are 18 are like, I don't care about Nelson Aguilar, like who cares about Juju Smith-Schuster? And so I think them and I think that's why Clay Helton struggled so mightily, to be honest with you, because, we're all kind of pretending that Lincoln's going to have this unlimited bag. Clay had the same bag, to go to all these kids with, but he couldn't get it done. So that's why I think this hire is huge for them. And it's huge for college football as a whole, because as Kyle said, it's just better when USC is good. And I think there's an entire generation of people that don't remember when USC was threatening for national championships. TJ mentioned second largest media market in the country. They're West Coast guys, so I'm up to watch them. You guys are out, doing whatever. You guys are asleep by then. But it's going to be massive, and I think it could genuinely lead to already we've seen an exodus of talent out of the Big 12, right? And out of Oklahoma, everybody left. Alex Grinch came with Lincoln Riley to be his defensive coordinator. I'm just curious if it's going to be enough to push them over the edge of some of these other teams, because USC is not established on the level that Kirby Smart has Georgia at, that Nick Saban has Alabama at, that Ohio State's at. Jim Harbaugh walks in your house. He's having a sleepover. He's wearing cleats. He's drinking all your milk. You know, it's kind of like a wild thing. These guys are like legitimately proven they recruit for their schools very, very well. Lincoln is now dealing with an entirely different side of the country, really, but he's been pulling in some really good classes. He's been competing with Texas, all the SEC schools from the north trying to poach his guys. Now he's essentially unrivaled on the West Coast, right? UW just got a new head coach, the dude from Hawaii. I forget his name at the moment, but
No, Fresno State.
Or Fresno State.
Yeah, he's good.
But
unproven.
Is he Lincoln Riley?
No.
If you get two knocks on your door and one's Washington, one's USC, and Lincoln Riley walks in, first of all, your mom made him a great dinner. You're sitting down. He's going to pitch you on something. And all of a sudden, I think they're going to be threatening for number one recruiting class in the country because we fool ourselves every year with college football. We say, oh, it's the coaches. No, it's the amount of 5 stars and 4 stars you have committed to your school that are going to be playing on Sundays. And he's going to get a lot more of those on the defensive side of the ball at USC than he had at Oklahoma. He had plenty on offense. But now he can kind of recruit that talent pipeline. And hopefully he, beefs up his defensive side of the football because that's always been the issue in the Big 12 for Lincoln Riley with Oklahoma. This year they were better, but the offense was bad. So now it's like, okay, put them together, go win yourself a national championship because, like I said earlier, it just takes one. He wins one, and all of a sudden the West Coast is his.
Yeah, he'd be a made man out there. TJ, give me your thoughts on this overall. I mean, leaving a place like Oklahoma, going to USC. I mean, the way that Kyle and Tyson talk about it, it's going to be a challenge for him. Just give me your thoughts on him taking on this challenge.
So I think we have to look at this from 2 lenses, right? You got nationally, what will he bring him to? And then in the Pac-12. So I'm just going to focus on the Pac-12 first. I think they're going to be one of the big powerhouses in that conference competing against, on and off again, Utah or Oregon, right? So they're going to be there. They're going to be relevant. He's going to get those recruits. It's Lincoln Riley. Like in terms of the players that want to go to the league, he especially on offense, he has the ability to try to get you there like he did with his Heisman winners, his number 1 draft picks. Nationally, I think they will be somewhere in that like 6 to 10 range rank wise in the college football playoff ranks. But, every so often can sneak into that playoff. But the teams are still going to be the teams as long as Nick Saban's still coaching at Alabama, as long as Georgia still has their head coach. I think they're going to be still those perennial powerhouses. Clemson, down year for them, but they'll sneak back in there every once in a while too. I don't think nationally him going there, even cornerstoning the market on the West Coast with those recruits, it's going to be enough to beat those guys that are still getting those 4 and 5 star recruits from the South, right?
Yeah, okay, listeners, you guys been listening to the show. Tyson and I don't bullshit. We say what we mean, and we don't come bring hot take crap. We say what we believe on here, even if it's strong opinion. So I'm going to say my strong opinion on what I think Lincoln Riley is going to do at USC. I think next year Lincoln Riley is going to win the Pac-12 championship. I think he's going to bring in all this talent. He's going to immediately be the best coach in that conference. I get it. Mario Cristobal has it rolling up at Oregon. Who do you think is a better coach, Lincoln Riley or Mario Cristobal? I'm going to go with Lincoln Riley. He's going to develop the quarterbacks that they bring in or have there. He's going to turn that offense of talent that's kind of been a mush. Nobody really knows what's going on there under the past regime. Lincoln Riley is going to make them sharp. They're going to be ready to go. And like you said, Tyson, Alex Grinch came with them. Those talented players on defense, they're going to be ready to roll because they're going to have a system and a scheme that's going to utilize their speed and utilize their strength. USC is going to be back, and they're going to be back fast. They win a Pac-12 championship next year. This thing gets going quick under Lincoln Riley.
Real fast, who's the best defensive player that Lincoln had at Oklahoma? Is it Kenneth Murray?
I think probably Kenneth Murray.
And he's a second-round draft pick?
Yep.
I mean, boys.
He's going to have some boys. He's going to have some dudes.
What are we
It's going to be scary, I think, when you look at the talent pool he's going to be able to pick from. I will say big picture, though, concerning about USC. I know that Alex Grinch got the bag following him over to USC. He's got to be a hot candidate in a few years to take over a program, though. No,
He could have had the Oklahoma job.
that would have been
really,
tough, though.
I really think he could have took that over. And we've seen, Brent Venables stayed at Clemson for a while they were rolling. So maybe it's just one of those things where he waits until his dream job is open and then he takes that. And we don't know what Alex Grinch's dream job is because he's been the highest paid defensive coordinator in college football for like 2 or 3 years now. He probably had his pick of the litter the last coaching cycle and the one before that, and he's still there. And then he followed the man to USC. So, I mean, that's kind of when you get out there, you're kind of out in the weeds because we have no idea. Really, maybe he has no aspirations to be a head coach. Maybe he really likes allowing 45, points to Texas and they win by 6, and then he looks like a genius the next week when they shut out Kansas.
Fair. Okay, so listen, what does Oklahoma do? Lincoln Riley's gone. There's rumors that they're targeting Cliff Kingsbury. There's rumors that they're targeting Brent Venables, like you said. But I mean, what do they do? I mean, they're losing recruits. Obviously, when your coach leaves, that happens. But you guys tell me, what would you do if you're the AD? Who do you go after? Who do you target? Tyson, who's on your list?
I really thought that before Dave Aranda re-signed at Baylor, I thought that would have been a great hire. I think he's a big-time college football coach. And now they're kind of left scrambling because it looks like everyone else has found their seats at the table. And if they haven't, it looks like Luke Fickell, he's fixated, or the rumors are Notre Dame is looking at him. Kind of all these up-and-coming programs. There are guys – I mean, would you rather coach Notre Dame or Oklahoma? As you're coming into the program, Oklahoma just had a mass exodus of recruits. Notre Dame still sitting at number 5 in the 24/7 rankings. I just think that they're not the best job on the market right now. But there's a, and I think Kyle might get into this, but there's an old man with a statue, outside the stadium. And I'm just saying he's already on the recruiting trail. His brother still coaches. He might got the edge.
Interesting. Bob Stoops. Are you bringing him out of retirement, Tyson? Fox can't pay him enough. Is that what you're telling me?
Are you kidding me? If we saw these contracts, there's no way Fox is throwing the bag out like Oklahoma. There's no chance. I mean, I don't know. I really don't know where they go from here. I think we'll find out more in the coming days. It would have been clearer if Lincoln didn't take a lot of the coordinators and stuff with him. But, I mean, the market right now doesn't look great. It looks like everyone else has kind of filled their positions, or, the negotiations have been ongoing with certain guys for quite a while. So I think they were blindsided by this, and I think they're actually genuinely in danger of moving to the SEC and moving into a conference where they're going to be looking at like the Kentucky tier when they thought they were going to walk in and be like, oh, we can play at Florida, Georgia.
Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, they're going to have to go for a home run. I mean, how can you pry Cliff Kingsbury from the NFL, from what he's built at Arizona? Brent Venables, like you mentioned with Alex Grinch, I mean, he's had the opportunities. Why is he going to leave now and take over Oklahoma? A lot of questions there. Kyle, your boy Gary Patterson, is that? But do you think that'd be a fit there?
It's a good question. I love some Gary Patterson. Again, I think he was extremely underrated at TCU. He put TCU on the map, like actually. When they had Andy Dalton there and they were like, 4th or 5th in the country and they beat Wisconsin in the Rose Bowl, that was huge for that program, man. That was absolutely huge. And, last few years have been a little down for TCU, but I think it could be interesting with Gary Patterson. Again, he knows that middle of the country area with recruiting. I think it just might be tough for him going down into the SEC, especially, coming in as a first-year guy there and not really having, his coordinators or really any players, obviously, that, he brought over there. So I think it would take a lot of time if he went there. So I don't know if he'd be the best fit, but someone that I was thinking about, I like Matt Campbell a lot. Again, another Big 12 guy who played against Lincoln quite a few times. And then also an SEC coordinator currently, but Jeff Lebby at Ole Miss. I think he's due for a head coaching job soon. I don't know if Oklahoma obviously is even the first place you want to go as a first-time head coach. But, with just some of those guys, having experience kind of in that region of the country, I think they could possibly fit there. But apart from that, I'm not too sure. I was even thinking someone like even Dan Mullen, who's just had a winning, culture in the past, just to bring someone in who kind of has experience, and knows what they're doing. But currently, again, from what I've heard, Bob Stoops is going to be the interim head coach, at least going forward. I don't know how long that's going to last, but that would be some turn of
That'd be so
events
dope.
and
That'd be
come
so
full
sick.
circle if he
That'd be
just
so sweet.
ends up back there, man. That would be all time great. And I definitely probably would like to see that over any of the other alternatives, because I think anyone else going there, especially like quote unquote this late, especially with the early recruiting period that's just starting like now, it would be very tough for them. But I would love to see Bob Stoops just say, "Hey, screw you, Fox. I'm gonna go back to what I
Yeah.
loved doing in the past."
Who called who first? Did Stoops call Oklahoma or did Oklahoma call Stoops?
Oh, Oklahoma had to call
Oh,
Stoops. Like,
they had to
please
call
come back,
Stoops.
Dad.
100%.
I mean, like Stoops was on the
100%.
phone as soon as he read it on Twitter. He's like, "I'm here. I'm down the street."
TJ, happened fast for Oklahoma. I mean, have you had a chance to think about who could be the replacement? Have you thought about it at all?
I'll tell you what they do.
Ooh.
They make a call to Jacksonville, say, "Yo, Urban, it's not working out. You tried in the NFL, it's not working out. Just come to Oklahoma, man." No, but in all seriousness, I don't know where they go from here. I don't know how desirable that job is now when on the horizon you have joining the SEC coming up. It is big shoes to fill also for any coach that steps into that program. Kyle mentioned you have the early recruiting starting soon. You're losing a lot of recruits as it is. And you have to be poised to not only still compete in the Big 12 while they're still in it, but then to take the steps to make sure that you're somewhat relevant in the SEC. So who can fill that job? I don't know. I haven't put too much thought into it.
Here's a name that I'm surprised you didn't think about, Kyle, is Dana Holgerson. He's currently coaching at Houston. He's coached programs before. I mean, West Virginia. He's been a leader. He knows how to lead programs. I don't think he'd be a bad option here. Now, is he going to be the guy? Okay, him versus Nick Saban are like, wow, Oklahoma really has a chance coaching wise. No, but I think he'd build the program to a steady point, and I think that'd be the most talent and definitely the best program that he's ever coached, where he'd be able to implement things that he wants to do with talent that he's never had before and create incredible offenses with five-star kids. He just naturally had better players on defense just by being in Oklahoma, playing in the SEC now that they're moving there. I think that'd be a good spot where Oklahoma should look to, like a reasonable person, not like, hey, Cliff Kingsbury will buy your house for like $1 trillion and offer you 10 billion. Like, come coach us, please. Like, if they're going to get serious, like, okay, how can we have somebody be a stabilizing factor for this program at Oklahoma? I think Dana Holgerson's, that's a call that I would make if I'm the athletic director there, at least to gauge his interest, see if he's interested in coming over.
Yeah, I actually like that a lot. I honestly did not think about that, and I really do like Dana Holgerson, especially when he was with Will Greer and Gary Jennings at West Virginia. Their offense was electric, and honestly, one of the most fun teams to watch in the whole country, really. But I believe this is his second year at Houston, maybe his third. I think it's his second though. But last year they weren't too great. This year they're 11-1 and in the conference championship, and we might get to it later on, but I think they have a very good chance of actually winning that game. So I don't know if he would just ditch a program for Oklahoma, especially with all the shenanigans going on and what it means going forward for him. I don't know if he would just jump ship like that. I think if this was maybe his fourth or fifth year at Houston and he could kind of see like where the top of the pyramid, where they could really just ascend to and reach that peak. I don't know if he thinks that he's gotten them there yet. I think he might think that he can get them to a top 15 team and maybe even a New Year's 6 bowl, honestly. So I would definitely make that call. I just don't know if he'd jump ship that quickly. And what I think would even be better is, again, if someone like Stoops, who's had even experience at that exact school, stayed on for a year or even two,
Right.
and then he came in as like an O coordinator, got to have some input on the offense, got to, and learn and just the culture there. And then if Bob Stoops were to leave or again step down, maybe he could then jump up into that head coaching position, more of a natural progression instead of just jumping over into something that's bigger than anything he's really been a part of before. But I do like that name. And I think with his offensive genius, it could really pan out there at Oklahoma.
Okay. Lincoln Riley obviously taking the USC job, creates an absolute kind of domino effect across college football. I think he took the second best job in college football. Time to talk about the best job in college football. Tyson's LSU Tigers. Tyson's LSU Tigers. Brian Kelly leaving Notre Dame to head down to the Bayou and coach the boys down in Baton Rouge. Tyson, I'm chucking you the keys on this topic. Just go ahead and spill out your thoughts on this one.
I mean, when it first happened, I've never been the biggest fan of Brian Kelly. Personally, I think he built Cincinnati into a respectable program, and then he left and went to Notre Dame, and he was really good for a while, and then he was bad for a year, and he's been really good since then. It's a different beast playing in an independent conference at Notre Dame, because forget all the Cincinnati stuff, because that's been so long ago now that it's kind of this is who he is. I'm evaluating the Notre Dame guy, because it's like, I don't care when Saban was at Michigan State either. So to me, he can recruit really well. They play solid football. They don't turn the ball over, all that stuff. But the one thing that really worries me is LSU has had one good quarterback in the last 25 years, and they set the world on fire. And Brian Kelly has had 0 good quarterbacks the entire time he was at Notre Dame. So to me, that's a little bit, that's whatever. But this is the job, right? And I think, kind of get it twisted sometimes. LSU's got this second or third most national championships in the last 20 years. The last 3 guys who have been there have won national titles. Ed Orgeron won one in a couple of years of being there. Les Miles won one in 4 years of being there, right? So this is a job where if you do it well right off rip, then you are immediately competing for titles, because Louisiana is probably you got that pipeline in Texas as well, but that's probably the most fertile recruiting grounds in the country. I mean, you look across any NFL roster, it's half Louisiana and Texas and that whole southern area. So if he can get down there and put some roots down, then they could be really, really scary for a lot of years to come. The issue is it's a completely different – we need the purple-faced Brian Kelly yelling at the sideline. I want the guy talking about executing his players after the game, because that's going to fly. But truly, it's going to go over well with the LSU fan base, more so than the guy that, is passive a little bit in his press conferences and doesn't. Part of the reason Ed Orgeron was so loved outside of being from Louisiana is because he gave a fuck. And at the end of his tenure, he didn't so much give a fuck anymore. Les Miles, at the end of his tenure, he didn't really care that much anymore. They were just going to skate to 10 wins off the talent that they had, because they're always – right now I think they're 15th in recruiting for this year. That will rise. It always does. On signing day, they get a bunch of guys who flip. They're always top 10, top 5 in recruiting. So this is – to me, they gave him a massive contract, right? Because that's kind of the way things are going, but you got to prove it now. Like, you have all these accolades and you're this decorated and you got more wins than Newt Rockne, you're the guy over there. But now you have to prove to us that you could really coach, because week in and week out, you're not playing Army and Air Force and Navy, you're not playing BYU. This is big boy shit. So if you can coach, you can beat them. But LSU has always lost based on the fact their offense was archaic under Les. And then under Ed, it was undisciplined for the last couple of years. Couldn't score points, mainly because the offensive and defensive line slipped. And that was supposed to be Ed Orgeron's, his special. But if Brian Kelly can turn those things around, this could be fast. It could be really, really fast, because he's not walking into he's not walking into a job where the expectations are unknown. His contract says if you win a national championship, the rest of your contract is guaranteed. I would win that shit if I could year one, and I would dip. I'd quit. I'd get my $100 million. But I just think, the expectation is the expectation. Shout out to Mike Tomlin, but it's to win a national championship. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You don't leave one of the 5 best jobs in college football for no reason. You leave it because you have aspirations of challenging Nick Saban on a national stage.
I think you said it best too, Tyson. I mean, there's something to be said about Brian Kelly wanting this challenge because he knows what he's walking into. He's walking into a conference where Georgia, talk about a beast that is has been awakened or awoke under Kirby Smart. I mean, that thing was sleeping under Mark Richt, and this thing is up and roaring now. Not to mention you have Nick Saban, I don't know, the best college football coach ever, Alabama. That thing just doesn't slow down. Florida, if a snap of a finger, they could be back immediately. Oh, by the way, Texas and Oklahoma are coming over in a couple years too. Ole Miss. I mean,
boys.
Honestly.
And by the way, let's not get it twisted. This is where James Franklin looked good or okay at Vanderbilt. And all of a sudden he's got a 10-year contract and he hasn't done anything since he left Vanderbilt. He had a good year, So this is a conference where even the worst teams in the league could beat you.
Yeah, exactly. And Brian Kelly wants to walk into that. And I think there's something to be said about, hey, this guy's ready for the challenge. And like you said, Tyson, that you need that not only at the SEC, at LSU, because, I mean, listen, Alabama has targets on their back. LSU does too. That's a storied program. Big-time players, big-time history. And so for Kelly to come in and say, I want this, you got to commend him for it. I've always been a fan of Brian Kelly. I'm excited to see what he's going to do. And one thing that LSU will not be under Brian Kelly is undisciplined. That ship will be right, and that ship will be right fast. And I agree with you. This thing could be going fast under Brian Kelly. Like, oh, man, it's LSU, it's Georgia, it's Alabama. Are we really thinking about 3 SEC teams in the college football playoff?
Well, I'm an LSU fan, and I would turn that off. I'm not watching 3 SEC teams play each other in the playoff. Are you kidding me?
Kyle, what are your thoughts on this?
I love it. And I really respect Brian Kelly for doing this and accepting the challenge. I know he's been getting a lot of heat for, kind of leaving unexpectedly. But again, like I previously mentioned, with this early recruiting period coming up, it's kind of putting everyone in a shitty position, for lack of a better word. He needs to get down there and he needs to get at it. And as everyone alluded to, I think this ship can really sail fast. He's super, super disciplined in a conference where that's not always the case on a lot of teams, especially with Ole Miss, someone I watch a lot. They are super undisciplined, and it's just sloppy sometimes.
I wonder who's in charge there. I wonder why.
But to Kyle's point, though, that's the difference between Ole Miss and a program like Bama and Georgia. Is that there's no reason that Ole Miss, they're not less talented than these people for the most part, right? Defense is a little different, but you commit 10 penalties to the other teams too, and all of a sudden you're down 21-7.
Yeah, no, there definitely is, a gap between some of the teams. But again, Brian Kelly going down there, that changes instantly. Tyson, you said it. The last couple of years, LSU's been getting a little sloppy, haven't been caring as much. Ed Ogeron kind of running a looser ship. Brian Kelly, I don't think that's going to fly down there at all. I think he has a no-nonsense attitude, especially coming from Notre Dame, where there's a lot stricter, I think, expectations when it comes to, on and off the field behavior, grades, and all that. And him being able to take some of that and bring it down to LSU, I think it's really only a positive for the team and the culture down there. And I really think, again, within 2-3 years, they're going to be a force to be reckoned with.
TJ, what are your thoughts?
I've also never been a big fan of Brian Kelly. I think Tyson put it best. He's leaving one of the best jobs in college football because he wants to be challenged. And you're going to get that challenge week 1 down in the SEC once conference play starts. It is it's a tough division, a tough league. Bringing back up that discipline point, he's going to have those guys disciplined, but I think Tyson also said that we need Brian Kelly blue in the face, not this current laissez-faire attitude. I think, especially down in the Bayou in Baton Rouge, as they say down there, Death Valley, you need to get those guys fired up. They're going to respect you more for it, and I think that which Brian Kelly are we going to see is going to play big into how they play on the field. The talent's going to be there, but you got Georgia, great coach. Alabama, great coach. Even some of those lesser teams, still great coaching. He might get out coached in multiple weeks during a season there. But can he string enough wins together to get that championship and be set? Or we'll see. Because they also get rid of guys. LSU also gets rid of guys.
The most aggressive athletic director in the country. This is the guy, he stole Kim Malarkey from Baylor Women's Hoops.
Yeah, which is big.
He stole Jimbo from Florida State when he was at A&M. This is a guy that he's not there to mess around. He wants national championships. Well, he's there. And then 2 more things, fellas. One, how much easier is it going to be for Brian Kelly to recruit when you don't actually have to go to class? You could just go to practice. I think that's a big thing that kind of has flown under the radar here. And then number 2 is USC and LSU play each other week 1 of 2024.
Oh, let's go.
Who's better by then?
Ooh. Bookmark it. All right. Give your
Can we go to that game? Can we go watch that?
LSU 77-0. It's not even going to be close. Brian Kelly's going to be flipping off the sideline, yelling at people.
I was just going to say that.
You see that picture?
Yeah, that's unbelievable. I love it.
That would be a nice little round table look ahead there. That'd be awesome. Oh man, USC and LSU 2024. That's what, Jerry's World?
I have no idea. I mean, the tickets to USC Rice right now were $395 for the cheapest seat. So I didn't even look it up.
Well, maybe I'll hit the lottery by then. We can treat each other.
You keep listening to our Thursday night picks, you'll be there.
Yeah, exactly. A little teaser. We got some picks for later. Let's talk Notre Dame then. Luck of the Irish ? I have it here because I just want to say this about where we've seen Notre Dame go from. Where I think just the way that we've been talking about Notre Dame on this podcast, I actually disagree with you guys about what the state of Notre Dame football is. I don't think it's a top 10 job anymore. And I get it's historic, and I get that it's the allure of Notre Dame, but
you don't have to win. You don't have to win at Notre Dame.
But that doesn't make it, in my opinion, it doesn't make it a top 10 job. I don't think that's like
TJ, you good there?
TJ's dying. I don't think that makes it like a top 10 job in college football because you don't have to win there. Like there's not that pressure to be elite. And because of the academic not hardships, but requirements to get in, as a football coach, that's got to be frustrating. Like you can't coach the best talent. And when they're there, they have such strict requirements. I know this is college football and you're a student athlete. I get all that, but we're also talking about programs and coaches who want to put these players in the NFL. And we're talking about a business at this point too. We just talked about it from the beginning. So I think we're looking at Notre Dame in the past light. I think right now it's not a top 10 program.
I think that it's a job where you can walk into, you get into the living room of every Catholic kid in the country. You get in the living room of every academic All-American in the country. And, you don't have to try. The kids that are going to Notre Dame, when you pay attention to their crystal ball and stuff on Rivals and all that stuff, they have one school. They got the offer from Notre Dame and they committed. So, yes, if you're not a Brian Kelly and you're just there to pick up a check, then to me, this is undoubtedly one of the best jobs in the country because, all you have to do now, especially, is beat USC one every couple of years. You just got to split with USC, and they're like, "Oh, we're good." You beat Stanford, who sucks. We don't care. You beat BYU, they suck. We don't care. You got one big game a year. You don't have a conference. You don't win conference championships. You don't have to win national championships. Brian Kelly lost by 142 to Alabama in the BCS national championship a couple years ago, and nobody cared. It was like a meme for a day that Barrett Jones shoved AJ McCarron, and then we're all good. It's the deepest, one of the deepest pocket schools in the country. They're rivaling Texas as far as the money they put out for a mediocre program. And Brian Kelly was winning 10 games every year. All they're doing is finishing top 6. I think they're fine being on the fringe top 25, recruiting kids that are going to give them a good name. And, I guess to your point a little bit is outside of like Harrison Smith and guys like that, like you can't run through NFL rosters and be like, oh, this guy was a beast at Notre Dame. Jeff Samardzij's pitching or
Chase
whatever for the Cubs.
Claypool, what's his name? McGlinchey.
Right. So, yeah, you get the
You
giant
cherry-pick a few.
offensive line guys and you get occasional few skill position players that are good enough. But you don't need pros to win these games. that's kind of my bigger point is they're not playing guys with future NFL players on their roster. They're just playing, college football teams. And to me, that's a big advantage if you're not looking to become, you don't want to leave a legacy in the whole of college football. You just want to collect wins at Notre Dame, get a check. It's a pretty good job.
I see what you're saying.
And to follow up with that, like Notre Dame, you're treated like a god there. You know what I'm saying? It's another one of those schools where they love their head coach. And with them, win or lose, like you can just it's a nice cushy job. You go to, you just rack up whatever wins you can and make money, and get the TV publicity for your next move.
Right.
So
and you get famous. You get famous nationally.
Yeah.
Because you're on all these games.
I see your points. But I don't know. For me, it just doesn't seem like.
I've never seen Brad back off an argument before, so we're not good.
Well, I think it's a nuanced conversation when you look at it. Like, what do we consider a good college job? I just think maybe my definition might be. I understand what you're saying to that extent, but like if I'm a Brian Kelly, no, I understand why he wanted to take a challenge because he's like, to your point too, Tyson. This is too easy. Like I just have to win 10 games, and if I make the college football playoff, I'm going to get smacked by Alabama because our players suck because I have academic requirements. Or I can go to LSU where I may get my ass kicked for a few years in a few games in the SEC. But I know if I build a program that I'm going to be the one kicking ass. Like that's why I think LSU is a better program. USC is a better program. Ohio State's better. I think honestly Miami's a better job than Notre Dame. Yeah. Michigan, I think, is better than Notre Dame as a job itself. Texas, I think Oklahoma's better than Notre Dame. If we're just talking about college football jobs in itself, where if you look at, okay, I can win here and I can win big here. Notre Dame, yeah, it's a good job because it's going to be safe and it's cushy and you can get kids by just saying, hey, it's Notre Dame, come play for me. And you don't have to play a tough schedule. But, I mean, for someone like Brian Kelly, that gets old. You know what I mean? And that's not, and when you finally make it and you get smacked by 134, like you said, Tyson, you get made fun of. It's like, yo, what do you want me to do, man? I don't have the players.
Kyle's stewing. Kyle's got something big for us. I can feel it.
No. I was just going to say, if I was a head coach, would I necessarily want to go there? No, but I'm also Kyle. I'm not Brian Kelly or whoever else is going over there.
You'd go to Ole Miss.
Yeah, I probably would. A lot rowdier down there. Or my seat.
He just wants to be a GA. He doesn't even want to be there.
There's wide receiver coach. That's all I need. Like Brian Hartline at OSU, which is so sick, by the way.
Oh, yeah, that is sick.
He needs to get more attention and recognition for that. But, no, yeah, I'd say it's definitely a top 15, maybe pushing a top 10 job. I don't think it is obviously what it used to be back when like Lou Holtz and everyone was there and, that whole rigmarole. But I definitely still think it's a good job. I just think Brian Kelly finally realized, and maybe even almost just got tired of realizing he was at the peak of where he was going to bring that program. We saw him make it to the playoffs. I think twice, something like that. Was it twice he made it?
I think 3 times, maybe.
3
or twice.
Okay. Two or three times.
2 or 3, yeah.
But regardless, when he got in there, it was a beatdown, and I think he realized that. And I said before, I think he, will he succeed at LSU? I do think he will. I think he will, and I think he was up for that challenge. Like, I think he might have been bored over at Notre Dame. It is a little bit of a cushy job, especially not having a conference, no conference championship. Stanford's been down, USC's been down. They played BYU the other week, they lost, but BYU's not a huge national program. They're top 25, but come on, it's not on the same playing field. So on to bigger and better things, and I applaud him for that. But I am a little, I don't want to say worried for Notre Dame over the next year or two, but I don't really know much about the guy they promoted to the head coaching position.
Yeah, Marcus Freeman, their defensive coordinator. That's the rumor as of now.
Oh yeah, I think we were mentioning this actually before we came on. We'll see. I think one of the big proponents of whether or not they're going to be an 8, 9, 10 win team going forward the next couple of years is, can he bring guys in? I don't know. Recruiting isn't for everybody. There's some guys who are X's and O's, and some guys who can recruit. Franklin is the latter, not the X's and O's guy. That I always like to say. But again, it'll be interesting to see 2-3 years down the road if that D coordinator does end up getting hired and they do play USC with Lincoln Riley out there, what that outcome will be. That is something to look forward to, at least in my book.
That's a good point. I mean, we don't know much about Marcus Freeman. I know he's thought of highly in coaching circles as to tab to be a next head coach somewhere. I don't think many people thought it was going to be at Notre Dame this quickly. Nobody really thought Brian Kelly was going to leave.
Notre Dame didn't think it was going to
Notre Dame was thinking it was going to be this quickly. But I will say he's very highly thought of across coaching circles. That's at least what a lot of people have said about him.
And
but
I will
right.
say the best recruiter in college football he's a free agent right now. Edo just got let go at LSU. I know he wouldn't fit in super well with those Catholic families and stuff like that at Notre Dame, but like for all these guys, moving. I mean, he has ties to USC. He recruited there for Pete Carroll. He obviously recruited one of the best teams in the history of college football at LSU. This is a guy where all these new head coaches that we've talked about at all these different jobs. Maybe if I'm Billy Napier at Florida, I give him a call.
I think that's a good thought there. Bringing him down to Florida.
Thanks, guys.
Luke Fickell, obviously, I think would be a dream hire for Notre Dame. I don't know if that's going to happen. I do want to get to the conference championship games with you boys. So I guess any last thoughts on this Notre Dame topic before we switch over to talking about products on the field?
I think it would be a home run if they get Fickell, but again, I don't know how necessarily realistic that is at the moment, but I think that would be their best case scenario.
TJ?
Oh, I'm excited for talking about the college championship. I don't have anything else to say about this. Yeah.
I just think it comes down to timelines, right? Because Fickell, again, that's his spot. That's what we've always talked about. This guy is either Ohio State or he's Notre Dame. But I mean, we saw Brian Kelly leave. They might make the playoff. He didn't give a shit. He was like, I'm out of here. I don't care. Fickell's in it right now. But Kyle thinks they lose this weekend, so we'll get into that too.
All right. Let's get into it, boys. Championship weekend. It's here. It is here. And let's talk about the Power Fives. There's some other interesting ones. I mean, obviously, Conference USA, Western Kentucky, and our UTSA beat Beeps. The Roadrunners, baby.
Roadrunners.
Trying to cap off a good season there. Obviously, the MAC, that's always interesting. The Mountain West, Sun Belt. You can go on the list. We're here to talk about the Power Five, and it starts off on Friday night. Oregon facing off against Utah in Las Vegas in the Raider Stadium. First time they actually moved it from San Francisco and that outdoor stadium into the fast turf in Las Vegas. Should be unbelievable atmosphere. Should be lit as fuck in the Death Star. Right now, Utah's a 3-point favorite. Same exact line as when Oregon visited Utah and just got jackhammered. Thoughts on this game, boys? Tyson, lead it off.
I mean, I got Oregon. For
plus
the same
+3
reason.
or money line?
+3 and money line. I don't care. I mean, I'm going to lose money regardless. The whole weekend's a wash for me. But this is, to me, like in the NFL, I always bet on the team the second time they played them, right? And you mentioned it; they got absolutely jacked up. But this is big money now. This is more than it was, 72 hours ago. We need to establish our dominance on this conference. Let everyone know that this is where you want to play. They have better players. They're better coached. They might not be a better football team. I'm still not sure about that, but they have something to prove here because they're in danger. Because if they go out and they get mollywopped again, then if I'm a recruit in 2023, I'm like, what the fuck? I don't want to play at Oregon. I just watched them lose to a bunch of Mormons by like 75 points at Utah. So to me, it's like Utah's on and off, and TJ said that earlier. And I just week to week, it seems like this year. It's not it's year to year like normal when they had Zach Moss and we were worried about them making the college football playoff. This team is up and down. Oregon's hot and cold. I'm more interested in the atmosphere than I am in the game, which is kind of funny. I wish I was there, to be honest with you, but I got Oregon.
Kyle?
I know, Brad, you and I were talking the other night about this game, and I know who you have. And I think I can't unsee what I saw last game. I know I'm one to also agree. I usually like to take an NFL team the second time around, especially if they lost the first time. But at the same time, and in the same regard, those are professionals. These are college kids, and I don't think that standard is exactly the same. I think Kyle Whittingham gets it done here. I don't think it's going to be a blowout like the first game, but I do like Utah in this game. I'm going to say, what's the line? 3?
3.
I say they win. I say they win by 6.
Kyle likes Utah to cover. Interesting. Okay.
I do, and that atmosphere is going to be electric. I didn't know the game was in Vegas. That's so awesome.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome in that dome. TJ, what do you like in this one?
I'm gonna go Oregon. I mean, they got their teeth kicked in last time, and they need redemption. And I'm also going to attribute it to a neutral field. They're playing in Vegas, closer geographically to Utah than Oregon, but so I think it's going to in terms of the 12th player on the field, the fans, I think it's going to be more heavily favored towards Utah, but I don't think that's going to matter. Oregon has had flashes where they've looked great, and they've had flashes where they haven't. And I think this is going to be one of those games where they know the job. They're going to come in. They're going to get it done. I don't think it's going to be by a lot, but I think they are going to put together enough players to pull out a win.
I like Oregon as well. I think 3 is. I don't understand this line in this game. I mean, it was -3 at Utah. Now you're telling me on a neutral that, Utah's still giving 3. It makes no sense to me. Oregon has better players. I actually think Utah's probably better coached, but I think Oregon, when, like you said, TJ, when it's time for them to rise, they will rise in this game. I think they win. They avenge that loss where they got their ass beat. And I think they do the ass kicking in this one. I like Oregon big against Utah. Saturday is filled with games, guys. I'm pumped up, and we got a ton of them. I mean, I'm telling you, I'm jacked up for this stuff. But I'm gonna go from kind of the least hype game and build into the biggest game. And I don't know if much people have been thinking about this one, but Pittsburgh takes on Wake, and I think the over-under's at 100 because it's basically 7-on-7 football with these teams. But I'm not gonna lie, I think the over-under's honestly is at 72.5. I don't even think that's enough points. This honestly might be a 90-point game. I mean, Wake Forest allowed Army to put up 50 on him. I mean, it was ridiculous. So imagine what Kenny Pickett can do to this defense. Line right now, Pitt's given 3. This game's in Charlotte. I think I like Wake in this game. I'm going to take the points with Wake. They just got a special season. This is when they were in the game last week. One of the sideline reporters was talking about how the seniors on the team have been building to this moment. This is their dream to play in this championship game. I think they get it done. Sam Hartman's going to have a big game. I think that defense steps up and delivers the play when they need it. I like Wake Forest +3, and I like them to win outright in the ACC championship game.
And I like Wake too here. We like to make fun of Wake for not having that many fans. That's been like Kirk Herbstreit was all over them. Wake travels well. When they're good, Wake travels well. If you go back to the bowl games that they've played, they've had a decent fan presence. And now they're really good. And they have a shot to play for a conference championship. And they don't have to travel very far. And this offense can score 7,000 points. Like, this is a video game offense. This offense is good. Kenny Pickett will be the best player in the game. And he has a chance kind of to make me and Brad look stupid here. But I've seen enough of Wake Forest this year to know that, A, they're never out of a game, and B, they can score with anybody. Can they stop everybody? No. But they can score with anybody. And I think in conference championship weekend when, the pressure builds, and these are two teams especially that have never been in this situation, all the players in this team are like, they're all very excited. They have the shot to win one finally. And Wake has played with teams better, I think, than Pitt. Pitt's beat better teams, maybe. But it comes down to who I want to win, and I just want Wake Forest to win. So that's where I'm going. I don't have any gambling analysis on this one, but it's going to be fun to watch.
What do you think, Kyle?
Yeah, this one's a coin flip for me. It's definitely going to be entertaining, but to both you guys' point, neither of these teams have a defense, and I think they're probably both going to score over 40. Pickett and Hartman, both probably going to throw for over 350 yards, probably 4 touchdowns apiece. It's hard for me to get over Wake Forest blowing that game against North Carolina. That was a real blow to their season because who's to say they might not be a
Right.
number 5, 6 team in the
Mhm.
country right now if they did not lose that game. But I think I'll probably take Wake. I don't really know who I trust more, Hartman or Pickett. I know Pickett's pretty decently high up on the QB boards. I know it's a weaker class this year. You know, he's a 5th or 6th year senior. But I think I'm going to take the Demon Deacons. I just want an entertaining game, to be honest, but I'll take Wake.
TJ.
Well, since y'all three are betting against
Oh,
Pickett,
no.
I'm going to take Pitt. And the reason why, Tyson, you said best player on the field, Kenny Pickett, better QB. I think he's slowly climbing up the ranks in this weaker QB draft class, and this is time for him to cement his stock or start his stock. You know, the money is being pushed around right now. He has to make a name for himself. Here's how you start that before the combine, before all that jazz. You get in here and you win yourself a conference championship by beating Wake Forest. And so I'm gonna say he's going to make all three of you eat your words, and
I'm cool
he's going to will.
I don't care.
He's going to will his team to a championship.
Okay. Houston and Cincinnati, basically, and now we're going to talk some ramifications for college football playoff alongside the analysis of these games. Because, listen, unless the committee was hit in the head with a Louisville Slugger, if Cincinnati wins and goes undefeated, they better be in the college football playoff committee, or everybody in America is going to go and hit them in the head with Louisville Sluggers, because that would just be so disrespectful not to put an undefeated Cincinnati with the win over Notre Dame in. But before we get ahead of ourselves here, they're 10.5-point favorites against Houston. Game is in their home stadium. So that's an added edge to Cincy. Now, I will say I do think they do splits, so it's not all going to be sellout Cincy because it's a conference championship game, so they have to allot some tickets to Houston. But still, long way up. Also cold in Cincinnati. Me personally, I love Cincinnati in this game. I think this is a 2-touchdown game. Cincinnati wins. Love their defense. I think they'll get it done on offense as well. I like Cincy to cover. I like Cincy to win. I like Cincy to make the college football playoff and avenge the Coastal Carolina snub from a couple years ago.
I got Cincy here as well. And, you know, everyone on this call right now, we know when it's a split stadium, half the people outside hawking their tickets, they're just Houston fans. You know, they're there to party. And this is not an easy travel, right? For Houston to go all the way up to Cincinnati. I think Houston's a very good team. I think they score really well, right? But this is power football now. This isn't, you know, playing all the other teams on Houston's schedule. I know they score 40 points. You got to show me. And that's kind of the motto of this podcast is you got to show me at home with the college football playoff berth on the line. Luke Fickell might have a bigger job on the line. This is a big deal for Spencer Ritter. You know, I think it's about time that he showed people that he's actually, like, week after week, it's like, oh, dude, I don't know how good this dude is. Houston's defense is not good enough to shut him out. It's not good enough to shut the running game out. This, to me, I don't know if it's a 2-touchdown game like Brad thinks, because that's rarely how these things go. I got Cincy just because I want to see it. I want to see it. This is a team that week over week has impressed me going back to the bowl game a year ago. You know, they can play with the big boys.
They hung with Georgia.
It would be a travesty if they didn't get to show that on the national stage.
Kyle, I know you were talking up Houston, your boy Dana. Put it on the record here.
I think the dogs are barking this weekend for me. So I'm going to take Houston in the upset.
Outright.
Indeed. So I know, Tyson, you were just talking about Cincinnati's defense. I don't know if you know this, but on a per-yard basis, Houston's defense is actually better.
I know, but I don't box score watch. I watch the games.
Oh, okay. So
he's an American Conference connoisseur over here.
My bad.
No, I'm just playing with you.
No, again, we were talking before we started this pod, but on a team-by-team analysis, it's pretty even, actually. Both Cincinnati and Houston letting up less than 20 points a game. They're both averaging about 40 points a game. on a per yard basis, like I said, Houston's actually a little better. On an offensive end, yards wise, Cincinnati's a little better. I've seen this story too many times. I feel like with these teams in these scenarios where it's right on the line and it just falls from their grasps. I'm not saying I want to see it necessarily, but I have a funny feeling it's going to happen. Dana goes up there and gets the job done. I really like Houston's quarterback a lot. He's actually been pretty special this year looking at his statistics. I haven't watched a lot of their games just because they're either on late or just not on at all. So I haven't had a crazy opportunity to watch them, but they've been very impressive this year. Again, 8-0 in conference. Unfortunate they didn't play Cincinnati up until this point. I think that would have been a real testament and maybe set this line a little differently if they had played during the season. But I love the Dogs this week, so I'm going to take Houston.
TJ?
So I up until literally this last second, I thought about riding with Cincinnati, but Kyle alluded to it. The moment may be too big for this team. Teams have been in this position before. Unprecedented territory to get into the college football playoff. And you know what? They fold, they crumble, especially early on. You don't want to do that against a team that is that wants to play spoiler to your season. So I'm going to go with Houston on that aspect alone.
Let's go.
It happens. It happens, man. We've seen this.
It does happen.
We've seen this every year when there's a Cinderella story team with a chance to make the playoff, and then they just fold at the last second.
I also have seen Dana fold at the last second in some of these big time games too. So that's a little bit why I'm a little hesitant. I've seen him kind of tuck his tail between his legs. This is, I'm not trying to fend for my boys here, but I'm at Mark Emmer's neck. I want Cincinnati in the playoffs.
Well, maybe the folder becomes the foldee this weekend. And TJ, I better see a ticket on Houston outright then if you're going to be talking this shit.
Hey, I got it. I'll place that bet and parlay with all the other games.
All right, let's go. Big 12 championship game, Baylor against Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State coming off the victory against Oklahoma at Bedlam. Crazy game as it always is. They pull it out, beat Big Bro. Are they riding a high? They just shellacked Baylor the last time. I mean, the score wasn't really indicative of how much of an ass kicking that was physically. Oklahoma State has a real defense. Oklahoma State still struggles offensively at times. Spencer Saunders prone to big mistakes. I think what helps them in this one is that Baylor's offense is just, you never know what you're going to get with them. Sometimes they execute well. Other times it looks like they're playing JV football. It's just bad sometimes. So for that aspect, I give Oklahoma State a big edge in this one. Opened at 5.5, Oklahoma State giving. It's down to 4.5 on the books. I actually like that. I'm going to take probably Oklahoma State just outright. I don't want to play around with the spread. I'll lay the juice on this one. I think they win it. They're inside. They're going to be at Jerry World in Dallas. So I think this is going to be a fantastic game, but inside on the track, don't have to worry about weather. Who's the better team? I think Oklahoma State is. I take them outright, and that's going to have them quietly knocking on the door of the CFP as well. With one loss, Big 12 champion over some pretty highly ranked teams as well. They got a good resume. They are sneaky to get into the back door there, but I like them to win this game and just basically play the waiting game because they kick off at 12 Eastern on ABC. Tyson, what do you like?
Yeah, I like Oklahoma State as well. I think Baylor's here a year too early, to be honest with you. I think, when Dave Aranda took this job, none of us really expected Baylor to be contending for a conference title so soon. And I think personally, in college football, I think momentum carries a lot of weight, right? Oklahoma State's coming off the biggest win as a program probably in whenever the last time, since 2011 when they were like number 3 in the country or whatever. This is a team, when you watch them on defense, they are fast sideline to sideline. They really are. And yes, they make mistakes on offense. I've seen Baylor make so many mistakes on offense this season that I think Oklahoma State's defense takes advantage of those. And they just need one key takeaway in this game to win this. I'm not really touching that spread either, but I do believe Oklahoma State's going to win this.
What do you think, Kyle?
I agree with both of you guys. I love Aranda at Baylor. I think he's doing real special things there. I just don't think it's their year yet. I really like the Cowboys defense this year. Not many people might have realized this, but the Cowboys defense, Oklahoma State, did not allow Oklahoma to score an offensive point in the second half of that game. They really came through when they needed to. And this is a special year for Gundy, and I'm really pulling for him to get into the college football playoffs.
Man, we need you with a mullet. We got
Yeah, you got to get a mullet going.
Yeah. I think I'd look all right with that.
I know you would.
But yeah, I really think it really could be a special year for them. Again, just picked Houston to upset Cincinnati. They're knocking on the door. If they win this game, there is a very high chance they can get in, and I think they know that, and I think they're going to come out to play.
TJ, what do you think?
Looks like we got our first full sweep of the evening, boys.
Oklahoma State fans.
I'm riding with Oklahoma State just because they're waiting, salivating. The players are ready to go. That defense, I think they pull it out, and I think they're just going to be waiting by the phone to see if one of those teams in front of them folds.
Well, we're all fight fans here on this podcast, and it feels like this is like an undercard and just building and building to the main events here. So I think this is actually the last one. So this is probably the main event. But Michigan and Iowa, talk about a massive game here. And funny enough, this is the biggest spread on the board. Michigan favored by 11. They're going to be at Lucas Oil Stadium inside of a dome. So for these teams, they got to be thinking they're in like Barbados or something, especially when the weather they've been playing in recently. So inside a dome, I like Michigan to win this one. 11 points is a lot. Gambling perspective, I'd probably try to get that down under 10 if I could, buy that to under 10. But you guys mentioned it with the Cincinnati conversation. I mean, Michigan under Harbaugh, they have not been here before. They have not been this big of favorites in a meaningful game, not to mention coming off a victory over Ohio State, which felt like a Super Bowl. Talk about a massive letdown spot here. Now, where I give them the advantage, Iowa has no offense. I mean, their quarterback is terrible. I mean, it stinks. He stinks. I mean, Petrus, or what is it? Petrus still, or is it the other?
Petrus.
Is it the other terrible quarterbacks they've had for the last 20 years?
I don't know.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
They're all bad. So Michigan has good defense. They're going to pressure that horrible statue of a quarterback back there, force him into mistakes, and then they should do enough on offense where I think that they'll win by 10 or more. So I do like Michigan in this one. And if Michigan wins, hey boys, Jim Harbaugh's in the college football playoff.
I'm gonna hate watch this game. I don't want to watch this at all.
Same.
To me, in college football, the number one thing that wins you games year over year is defensive line. You know, it's similar in the NFL, but at college we see that talent disparity kind of creep up more and more. And this Michigan defensive line is nasty. And all they might need to score 3 points, and they could win the game.
Yeah.
I would just figured out the forward pass. You know, it's not going well over there. Yeah, they're a good team, but this was a down year for a lot of the rest of the Big Ten. They weren't quite as good as I was anticipating them to be, and Michigan kind of took advantage of that. I don't think Michigan's as good as they looked last weekend. I think that was a lot of pent up emotion from a lot of guys who had never beat, the neighbors, and so it was like it's about time that we pulled this thing off, and they played pretty much perfect from a Michigan standpoint, But all they have to do to win this game is pressure Iowa, stop the run, and run the ball themselves. And Michigan's shown over the course of the year that they can do those things.
Kyle?
Yeah, I like Michigan here. I think it's going to be a classic Big Ten struggle. Both defenses are pretty good, but Iowa's offense is just archaic, and it is atrocious. That quarterback should not be playing at any Power 5 program. It's really, really bad. Michigan's D-line is filled with studs. Two of the gentlemen that they have playing there.
Probably 2 first-round picks.
Yeah.
Yep.
And with the 2 of their sacks combined for the season, leads the nation. So that's just literally ridiculous. It's like 24 now or 25. That is insane. Yeah. So I like Michigan. I wouldn't touch the spread unless you could probably get it down to maybe under 10, like Brad said. But I think they win.
TJ, are you doing a back-to-back sweep?
Yeah, let's bring it on. I like
Let's go.
Michigan, and I like them by a lot.
Woo!
Bottom line
By a
is
lot.
by a lot. Bottom line is the running back for Michigan. The whole time the Big Ten, we've been hearing about Iowa's running back is the best running back in the Big Ten or one of the best running backs. Michigan's running back is going to have something to say about that. 2, Michigan's D-line. They are going to come after whatever the dude's name is under center. I don't even know. Those 2 guys are going to be in his face. They're going to be knocking him around. They're going to be kicking his teeth in. And Iowa, regardless of what their record says, they are frauds. They are frauds. That defense, the offense is terrible. It's looked terrible. That defense is not what it's looked like week in and week out. And call me a homer, but I'll give you one game, that Penn State game. If Clifford doesn't go down, Penn State was marching in that first half and he was dicing them apart. And that's Sean Clifford. All right. He was dicing them apart. I think Michigan is going to put together a lot of plays on offense. I think the running back is going to run all over Iowa's defense. And I think that defense is going to swarm Peaches.
Can I say one more thing, Brad?
Yeah.
We move on? So, TJ, to your point about Sean Clifford, I will admit that Penn State was moving the ball pretty effectively against Iowa in that game. But let's not forget, in a quarter and a half, they picked him off twice. So let's just
Right, but he does want
Those
Penn
were
State
bad
to be
throws.
good. For everyone out there, he is cheering for Penn State to get better. It doesn't sound like it, but he is.
No, that is a fact, though. That
those
is a
were
fact.
both ill-advised
That is a fact.
throws.
Neither
was the defense getting the better of them.
He's
Seeing
talking.
ghosts.
Yo, Kyle talks out of both sides of his mouth. You're right.
Hey,
That's what
come on, that's what
Tyson.
makes it fun, right? That's what makes it fun.
All right.
Wait.
Oh,
one
go
more
ahead.
thing. And
No,
then
finish your thought.
The other thing I was going to say is I really wish Minnesota was in this game. I'd love to see my boy PJ Fleck pull off a huge, massive upset. But
He stinks.
hey, better record than you know who. So
But again, right, Tyson, he's a fan. All right. All right, boys. Now it's time for the main event. Georgia and Alabama. This feels like for all the marbles. Georgia's still going to be in the college football playoff regardless of this, but Alabama could miss it if they lose this one. 6.5 point favorites. Georgia is over Alabama. Alabama, I don't think, has been an underdog in a game, and I think something like 90 games. Some ungodly number, which is just fucking crazy. It just shows you the level of dominance that they've had over this sport. So that's that. I got 2 angles for you here. One, gambling. I'm taking Alabama. It's just, when you get Alabama in a spot like this, I think value-wise, you got to take it. I hope it gets up to 7, but I've been listening that the bookmakers don't want to put that thing up to 7 because they know like everybody who's got some semblance of cash will just put it on Alabama, and they're going to have some liability on that angle. So I'll probably take Alabama at 6.5 just because of it's the spot they're in. They haven't been an underdog in 90 games. Like I'll take my chances on Georgia coming away with a victory by a field goal, but I like Georgia to win this game. I think they're the better team. Their defense is more dominant. I think they have better units on both sides of the ball. And I like them to get it done. I like them to go undefeated, and I like them to be the number 1 seed going into the college football playoff.
Look, preseason, I put down Georgia national champion as a bet. I'm all in on Georgia this year. I've seen this movie before,
Oof.
right?
Oh,
I've seen this movie, and Kyle was talking about it. You know, Cincinnati could lose because you're right on the precipice of greatness, and you're not ready. This is Nick Saban with a couple. He's been preparing for this Georgia game for a while. I know that last week was really close against Auburn. I'm of the opinion that we're going to go in there. We're going to kick the shit out of Auburn in the Iron Bowl. And we're going to move on to Georgia. And I think that all year long they've probably been putting in stuff because they knew they were going to see Georgia in the SEC championship game. They have right now maybe the Heisman winner at quarterback. I don't think he should win the Heisman, but if you pay attention to the odds, it looks
he's
like
going to win the Heisman,
which is just a disgrace because Jordan Davis is the best player in the country. But
or Hutchinson at Michigan.
Whatever. I said what I said. So no, but
wow.
Look, I want Georgia to win so bad. I got Bama.
Winning outright.
I got Bama just win
Oh.
the game. Look,
Oh
I know.
my God!
I know.
Why did I feel? I felt painful for you having to
No,
say that.
saying that I almost threw up a little bit. But like this is to me, this is the most underperforming team of the year is Alabama, and they're sitting in the 3 spot. It just takes 60 minutes, and you're telling me Nick Saban doesn't have these guys ready to roll for a title that means a lot for these guys, because this is like we beat them in the national championship game. Georgia is going to come out ready to rip heads off. Bama sees that every week.
Yeah.
Every single team Bama plays is coming to kick the shit out of Alabama. Georgia might be the most equipped to do it, but like I said, I've just seen this movie before, and it takes special offenses to beat Bama in those moments. It takes that 2019 LSU team, right? If you go all the way back, the last really, really good defense to beat them was like 2011 when they lost the one game 9-6. You have to score a bunch of points to beat these guys in big games. And I don't know if Georgia's going to score a bunch of points. Give me Nick Saban, and give me the juice. Give me Nick Saban plus money. I'm going to take it.
Oof, man. Okay, that's a convincing argument. Kyle, did he convince you?
Ooh, it's a good question. I think I like Alabama to cover here, but I'm going to go with Georgia. That defense, there might be 12 offensive or NFL players on that defense. Honestly, it might be the best defense I've seen in the better part of a decade, honestly. And I've watched a good amount of Alabama, I'd say, this year, and I do not think their offense is necessarily as explosive or refined as in years past, especially when it comes to running the ball. And with a freshman quarterback, granted, a Heisman frontrunner coming in as a young player, I know he was super, super poised in that Auburn game. Incredible drive to go down the field and score with a few seconds left there. But Georgia's defense is a different animal. And I think they're going to make him uncomfortable. And if they make them one-dimensional team and force them into constant third and longs, I think they might struggle a little bit. And again, it probably will end up coming down to the wire. But I'm gonna take Kirby Smart and that defense to come through here. And I know a lot of those teams on the outside looking in are just praying that Kirby Smart can finally come through for them when it counts. And it's tough for me to say, but I think he does it.
TJ?
I think we are going to witness history this year, boys. Pretty sure since its inception, Alabama will not make the college football playoff this year. I think Georgia wins this game. I like the defense. Like you guys said, this defense is for real. And Alabama just doesn't look the part that we see offensively at times. They put together enough plays at Auburn, but that game shouldn't have even really been what it was. I know it's the Iron Bowl. It's always supposed to be close, but shouldn't have been what it was. And they, stumbled and tripped and fell against Texas A&M. So I like Georgia in this game. I think Alabama, if they're a 2-loss team, there's no way. Well, we could be seeing history on the other end, first 2-loss team in the college football playoff just because they're Alabama. But if we're going to go off of what the committee has done in the past, if they have 2 losses, they're out. And I think they're going to get that second loss here.
If you're going off what the committee's done in the past, this is a quality loss. They go up to number 1.
They don't know what
not with 2 losses.
They lost to Georgia. What do you mean? Georgia's the best. They lost to them. Bump them up.
Nah, I can't say that from being someone of a program that got shafted because of that 2-loss thing.
Yeah, and then they also lost to Texas A&M, who just lost to your shitty Tigers, Tyson.
Oh, they suck. I know. That was 2 offensive penalties in the final minute. That was Edo's send-off. They knew what they were doing.
All right, well, we're split on the main event. I love it. Real quickly, boys, let's get into it. Let's get into the college football playoff discussion. I'll run through mine quick, just different scenarios, and then you guys can give me your thoughts and your opinions on your thoughts and analysis and everything. Georgia wins, they're in. Georgia loses, they're in. I think Georgia's automatic no matter what. Number 2 team, Michigan. I think with a loss, they're out. With a win, they're in. They're going to be the number 2 seed. Alabama, loss, I think they're out. Win, they're in. So those are your 3 there. I think Cincinnati wins, they're in. They lose, they're out. Oklahoma State wins, they are in with a loss by either Michigan, Alabama, or Cincy. With the loss, obviously, they're out. Now, Michigan loses, Alabama loses, Cincy loses, Oklahoma State wins. I think Notre Dame is in. So there's a scenario there. I think
Could
for
you
Notre Dame
imagine?
to get in, they're going to need to be 3 losses. For
Who else
Oklahoma
would-
State to get in, I think there needs to be 2 losses. For one from Cincy and Alabama, and then they'll slide in. I think you kind of play toss up from there, but I think Notre Dame will slide in, or Alabama will just jump down to number 4, where we get to see Alabama versus Georgia a week later. I don't know how the committee can do that to us, but they probably will. So, but that's my thought process there. I think it really only comes down to those 6 schools.
So wait,
and-
Brad.
Yeah.
So if Georgia wins, and then like you said, Michigan loses, Alabama loses, Cincinnati loses, who's your top 4 then?
It'd be Georgia 1,
Mm-hmm.
Oklahoma State 2,
Oof.
or probably Notre Dame 3, and then I'd have to think about it from there.
It'd be Bama. Depending on the score of the game, they put Alabama in there.
But
Are
what
you
if they
kidding
get
me?
shellacked by 50? Can you
What
really
if they
put them in?
don't though? Because that's probably not going to happen.
That 4th spot.
But do you
So
want to see him play Georgia again?
No,
It
but
sucks.
you know what the ratings would do?
It'd be
we've talked
terrible.
about- are you kidding me?
I don't think people would watch that.
We
suck.
wouldn't. People
We'd
would
watch
tune in.
it.
Right? But I mean, what are you're going to put a 2-loss Alabama out if they lose by
Ole
3?
Miss sneaks in there.
Oh, get out of here!
Dude, if they didn't lose to Auburn, they low-key literally could maybe be in the playoff right now.
Yeah, they could. I mean, realistically, Oklahoma State, I think, beats Baylor. I think Cincy beats Houston, and I think it really comes down to what does Alabama do? Because if they lose a close game, God, I can't have the committee screw over Cincinnati and just see Alabama in there again. That would, and I respect Alabama, but I just can't see it. But those are my thoughts right now. Tyson, do you have
wait, just
Yeah.
real quick question though. So say all those teams, that scenario plays out the way you said it. Houston's sitting there. I know they're 21 now, but they're sitting there at 12-1. You mean to tell me they're going to? I know it's a high jump, but if they beat Cincinnati and knock them off, because that's how your scenario was, that they would let in a 2-loss team potentially before a 12-1 team that just knocked off the number 4 team.
Bro, the committee's putting in Clemson before they before they put in Houston.
They probably put in Lincoln Riley's USC before.
I'm just saying, bro. They're saying
Houston has
12-1
no
at that
chance.
point.
They probably put in Oklahoma, honestly, over them.
Well, Ohio State.
Or Ohio State,
7, right?
Yeah, Ohio
Yeah.
State, they probably slide them in there.
Damn, I
that
wish
would
Ole
be
Miss was-
fun to get the game in the national championship. I know it's
Oh
super
my
unlikely,
God,
but that would be.
You want to talk about ratings? Holy smokes!
And a revenge game, potential revenge game at that.
But that's my thought process. I don't know if is yours different than mine, Tyson. How have you kind of thought through this whole thing?
No, I mean we're on the same page. It's far fetched for me to believe that 3 of these top 4 lose. I think honestly that they're going to hold going in to the final. I think Bama might drop out, and then we see Oklahoma State go in. But again, to me, that is dependent on the score. But like I said, I got Bama winning, so I think this top 4 holds.
Woo-wee. Okay, Kyle. Any changes? Anything you can foresee?
Well, just based off my picks, again, I had Georgia winning, Michigan winning, Alabama losing, and then Cincinnati losing. So with that logic, I'd like to think that if Oklahoma State wins, which I think they do, I think they get up into the 3rd spot. Now the question will then become who has that 4th spot? Do they move Notre Dame up there, or do they potentially keep a 2-loss Alabama team in there if it was a close game, which I think it might be? that's where there might be chaos. And I would not be the one. I wouldn't want to be the one making that decision, to be honest. And I think if that does play out the way I think it might, there's going to be some very upset fans on both ends of the spectrum, especially if a 2-loss Alabama team gets in there over, a 1-loss team, even if they necessarily maybe don't deserve it or aren't better than Alabama. But it's going to be something to see for sure. Like I previously mentioned, I really wish Ole Miss could somehow jump up in there, but I don't think it's possible. But to your prior point, though, with maybe the 3 of the top 4 teams losing, and I brought up Ohio State sitting there at 7, that would be very interesting. Like, especially if those 3 teams, again, probably very unlikely, but if they all get blown out and Ohio State's sitting there, maybe for that last spot over Notre Dame. Again, they have 2 losses, so I don't think it's too likely, but I don't know. They're kind of just hovering back there, kind of, again, wishing for chaos to ensue.
And you talk about a job interview. I mean, Notre Dame gets a college football playoff. Marcus Freeman all of a sudden gets to take over. Talk about a job interview. College football playoff. Hey, good luck, pal. good luck. TJ, you've run through the scenario here. Any thoughts that running through your mind you want to get out there?
Yeah, I think I'm on a similar page with Kyle. Like I said, going off my picks, I picked Alabama to lose, and I picked Cincy to lose. So I think they would both, in that scenario, fall out. And Oklahoma State would definitely sneak in. Notre Dame may sneak in, but again, looking at Cincy, even though they lost to a lower opponent, they're still sitting there at 12-1. So based off that, and stumbled at the last second, I know there could be some recency bias there, but at the end of the day, depends on what the committee wants to do, and it depends how this weekend plays out.
Well, that is our college football discussion. I mean, if you're a college football fan, we laid out basically everything we could for you here. I mean, analysis on Lincoln Riley, Brian Kelly, where Oklahoma goes, Notre Dame, and then breaking down everything. I mean, it's a big time, exciting time of the year for college football. I'm thanks to you guys for joining, first of all. But before we close out the show, Tyson, as you know, it's money making time, baby. It is money making time. Thursday night football between the struggling Dallas Cowboys and the Saints, who are going to go Taysom Hill at quarterback. What a game. And TJ and Kyle are joining us for these picks. Now, if you listen to our Thanksgiving special, Tyson was fucking rolling, baby. He hit you guys a plus 900 on.
Oh, yeah.
You thought it was a long shot. Tyson told you what it was. He knew he was going to hit it. And boy, he banged that thing through. That was huge. So, Tyson, because of that, I'm going to let you lead off here. And I think you got something cooked up for the listeners out there that's going to make them a little bit of holiday cash.
I appreciate letting me go first. This is a new kind of situation for me, so I'm a little nervous. But I got a same game parlay here. I'm back with one of those. I got Dallas Cowboys minus 4.5. Look, man, the Saints suck. Like, there's no way around it. It doesn't matter who's starting the quarterback. They suck. Dallas has a bunch of COVID cases. Doesn't matter. They got to bounce back. I think they cover that 4.5 spread. I think CeeDee Lamb goes over 63.5. He's out of concussion protocol. He's practicing in full. I think he's the best receiver on the team. Amari Cooper is traveling with the team, still questionable. Doesn't matter. I think CeeDee Lamb goes over that 63.5 number. And then your boy, Brad, Taysom Hill scoring a touchdown. Because if I know one thing about Sean Payton, it's that he loves Botox. I know 2 things about Sean Payton, it's that he loves Taysom Hill. And that boy scoring a touchdown this week. I can promise that. So that right there, that's $20 to win 238. Just a little 3-leg same team parlay. And I'm very confident in those picks.
I love it. Well, Tyson, we're on the same page on pretty much all of these here, except for the side. I like Saints plus 4.5. I don't really know why. I just think this number stinks. I mean, like 80% of the money is on the Cowboys. Open at 6, it's down to 4.5. I think the Taysom Hill thing, a little bit different dynamic, or a little bit of a different dynamic for what that offense has been in the past. Alvin Kamara is healthy. He's going to be back. Well, healthy. He's going to be back. Mark Ingram, he's going to be back. They're missing their bookend tackles. Makes me a little nervous for that pick, but I'm going to take Saints 4.5. I think Cowboys can win by a field goal here, but I'll
That's
take
your
the
NFC
points.
title contender.
I know.
too, though, right?
Oh yeah. Well, hey, we got a long season. They'll rev it back up again. Don't
We're
worry.
already almost at the end.
Hey, they'll throttle it up. Don't you worry about those boys down there. Tyson, I'm with you though. Taysom Hill, anytime touchdown, I'm gonna take it as a single. That's plus 180. Honestly, I'd honestly look at Taysom Hill 2 or more touchdowns at like plus 600, plus 800. That's not out of the realm of possibility there. But I love that Taysom Hill anytime touchdown plus 180. Then I like Ezekiel Elliott over 46.5 rushing yards. I know the Saints are good at stopping the run, but I think the Cowboys are going to hand the ball off to Zeke. He's got a little bit healthier from last week, got pretty much a full week off. It's not like you go Thursday to the Sunday, but I like him this week to get over 46.5. Those are my 3. Kyle, why don't you, as a guest picker, tell us what you got?
Sure thing, Brad. Didn't have a huge chance to look at these since I didn't know we are going to be doing these special Thursday night picks on this recording. But just off the top of my head, I like Zeke, anytime touchdown scorer, Taysom Hill, anytime touchdown scorer, and Alvin Kamara coming back, anytime touchdown scorer. Parlay that, and should be a decent little payout.
There you go. A little same game parlay action for the kid.
Indeed.
TJ?
Yeah, like Kyle said, didn't really have too much time to prep. But you know what? I am going to, since I told you last time I saw you, Brad, that I was going to fade anything you do, I'm gonna rock with Tyson's same game parlay and take that Dallas -4 along with Taysom Hill anytime touchdown score.
You're back at Tyson for what? How long now? A year and a half? How long you known me? You're back at Tyson all of a sudden? What the
Hey
hell?
man, I've seen you win and I've seen you lose a lot. So
The right answer was long enough. I've known you long enough.
Fair. Tyson's been hitting these picks. I love it. Well, boys, I know I appreciate you guys joining us for this college football show.
Thank
I know
you for having us.
Tyson wanted to talk ball.
blast.
He convinced me to let you guys on, so you better be thinking, Tyson.
Right. I need some Phoenix Suns love. I need TJ to never bring up the New York Giants ever again. I need him to apologize to PJ Tucker. And then after that, I think we're good. So, you guys do all those 3 things and you can come back on.
Well, boys, I really appreciate it, as always, for your listeners out there. We really thank you for tuning in. So like and subscribe to us on the Roundtable, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Watch us on YouTube. You can see us sticking around on here. And follow our socials. Follow the Roundtable on Instagram @_the Roundtable pod _ Follow me on Twitter @BWakai. Tyson, plug your IG and anything else you want to plug.
Tyson Gentry. It's Gentry spelled with an I. And then listen to us on Sundays at the listen to the Roundtable. The Peep Show. Listen to us go. I know Brad's sitting at number 1 right now in the pick and pool. You guys are hot on his trail. I'm sitting way back, So, listen to my same game parlays. Maybe not like game picks, but I don't have anything else. I don't do anything besides these pods, so there's nothing to plug.
That's fair. Kyle, any social media, anything that you want to plug since you're on?
Yeah, sure. I'll plug my Instagram. That's the main platform I'm on. So it's Kyle Banashevsky, and that's KyleBanashefski. I know it's a mouthful, but it'll be worth your follow.
He's got a lot of app picks on there, ladies, so go ahead and follow him. TJ, plug your socials or anything else you got.
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram as well. That is Original T Money, but with a 3 instead of the E. Hey, I made it back in the day, so you know what? And I stuck with it. If it's not broke, don't fix it. But yeah, you can follow me there. I am private on there. I may accept, but we'll see.
Yeah, he's a fossil, this guy. He's basically Kirk Ferentz on social media. Well, thank you guys again for joining us. Thank you for the listeners out there for listening. We'll probably have to bring you back on when we get bowl games, everything set up. We might do something fun like picking games. Kyle, I know you're into that, and Tyson's a big guy with that too. So appreciate the listeners out there. Tyson, I'll be back with NBA stuff, back with NFL stuff as well. But until we speak again, peace.
Yep. Thanks, guys.